there's just something to it.
It's kind of strange because, to tell somebody else like, oh, New York artists are unique and different. And then, like, they look at you like, especially I live out here in South Florida, and they're like, yeah, of course you're gonna say that because you're from the state. Like, what other? But you're saying that it's completely not true. Like, there's something,
No, there's something. I always look at them and I go, the Beastie Boys. I just,
right?
that's it. I just go, the Beastie Boys. And I kind of just like Run DMC. And I'm like, what else do you want me to say? Like, it's just,
It's crazy.
there's just something. There's an edge to them without there being an edge. Like, there's, there's just something they get. They can laugh at themselves, but take themselves seriously all at the same time.
I think also, especially with the Beastie Boys, right? Like, people just don't understand this, and I understand, especially coming from, like, my mom grew up in Williamsburg in the '60s in the projects in Brooklyn,
Mm-hmm.
and
My mom's from the Bronx. Yeah.
so when you look at a rap group like this, especially where they're upper class, they came from upper class Jewish families, and they grew up in the, I think, Upper East and Upper West Side in New York during like the '70s and '80s. Like, that was so expensive. Like, even now it's extremely expensive. Back then was so expensive. And then they come together and they make these songs about like them being rebellious, them like fighting against their like parents and dealing with poverty, and you're like, hang on, wait a minute. You guys never went through poverty. You never struggled. You grew up in one of the safest parts of the city in one of the most dangerous times to live in the city. That is,
I
wow.
sound went a little crazy there for a second. I don't know if you can get it on your end, but I think with the Beastie Boys in particular, I was what video was it? Intergalactic, and I'm like they were ahead of like the Japanese anime trend, but yet they pulled in the Godzilla old like cult movie in that video, and you're watching it, and it's once again it's like they didn't take themselves too seriously, but serious enough to pull that video off that you're watching it going, yeah, that's New York. Like that's a New York artist. That's just it. And I think they summed up that whole vibe. And then, like I said, you pull in like Run DMC and even Walk This Way with Aerosmith,
Hmm.
the way they did that video. And it's just another, I take myself seriously, not too seriously, but I take my art really seriously.
That
And that's a New York vibe.
that is a New York vibe, and it's very true to the art in itself because at that point already, hairspray metal was kind of dying. And a lot of people don't remember Aerosmith was kind of dead by the end of the '80s. They had barely any fans. They were losing money more than they were making, and they're running out of ideas. And that collaboration literally changed a generation. It was like, hang on a minute, wait a minute, you can mix two genres together, and like, think about it. Fast forward to today, pretty much every song now is a mixture of like four or five or six genres. It wasn't like that 20 or 30 years ago. But it took people like that to say, you know what? I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to let hardship get overwhelming me. I'm going to try something so I can be successful.
I think, yeah, I think artists like that, it's so rare, but yet at the same point, it's like, oh, that's part of New York. Like they're willing to always try. I think that's also when you go to stuff like New York Comic Con, it's a very different vibe than and I've done all like Galaxy Cons and things like that where I've been to other places, but always when I come back to New York Comic Con, you see the mashup of characters and the way people cosplay, and it's just different than anywhere else. I've seen great cosplayers at other cons where the builds are great, um, the ingenuity is awesome, but there's nothing like the New York Comic Con and the New York Comic Con scene where it's just there's a certain art form to it that you don't get anywhere else. And I know, yes, I'm biased in New York, but like I have a friend, Mark Handel, he does Doctor Doom, and he's just a phenomenal Doom. But he thought to build Doom's dinosaur and ride in it. And I'm like,
What?
where did you like with Doom's Tyrannosaurus Rex?
Yeah, that
And
thing's
he built it and
massive.
and he's riding. He's got his legs in it, and he's riding around in it. And I'm looking at him like, out of all of Doom's stuff, that's what he thought of. But once again, I'm like, only a New York Comic Conner, only a New York cosplayer would come up with that look. It's just, so it's like, to me, that's part of being a New York artist. Like, he takes himself seriously in his art, but not too seriously that he's got Doom's legs flapping around on the side, of the dice. Like, you're just like, okay, yeah, that's New York Comic Con. Like, yep, that about sums it up.
I
So I just, yeah, I'm kind of
I
biased.
literally, like, I'm sorry. The thing that I can just picture in my head right now is just waiting at Church Avenue for the subway and just seeing that trying to get onto the train. You know, like the full dinosaur, like trying to like get the head through the doors before they close, and I'm just like, oh my god, it's so fucking New York.
That's it. That's exactly it. Like, you're just looking, going, uh huh. But there's just a vibe to it. So I appreciate that so much. And just a New York artist, I do think there's a difference. Wherever you come from, I just think you pick up certain influences. And there's just no influence like New York. And I'm sure people on the West Coast will say the same thing. You can't pick up, like, there's a certain laid back vibe or whatever that they'll tell you about. But I think when you're in New York, regardless of what part of the state, there's something you draw from. And it's just quintessential New York.
It's look, I've been living down here for 3 years, and I'm going to be straight up and honest. I have really tried very hard to get artists onto this podcast locally many times, and it has been a little bit of a living hell because a lot of the times people will either cancel or literally go to shows. I have to drive to go to these places and spend hours. And you're like, yeah, 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 I'm showing up 5 months, 6 months, here, nothing. But I literally was in New York last weekend. I went to get a tattoo. I met this incredible artist that's right there. Bam. I asked her. She goes ahead and does the pre-call. I have her scheduled tomorrow. I message out, reach out, bam. We're done. You send me a message, I respond, like bam. We had a little bit of a hiccup figuring out with the recordings. You send me I sent you out an email. You send me done. Like, I'm not trying to be biased, but I'm just, maybe it's just from where I come from. Like, I have found that New York artists, if you tell them, hey, come on my podcast, let's spend some time, let's talk, they'll show up. They'll show up and they'll tell
Mm-hmm.
you everything about what they're doing because I think there's an understanding of like, we're both working our fucking asses off. Like, it's not easy to write
Yeah.
books. It's not easy to be creative when you're trying to also have a career and also be financially able to pay your bills. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta
Yeah.
fucking show up. I'm sorry. Like, that's fact of
That,
life.
that's that's I also think a little bit more of a New York thing. I've noticed I've had times. I think you might want to adjust your sound though a little bit.
Sorry.
Like, I'm getting a little more static, so I
Yeah.
don't know. But
Hold
I've
on.
had it where
How about now?
I've gone
Better?
still a little more. It's coming in like real staticky all of a sudden.
It could be. Give me a second. Okay, how about now?
Yeah, it's coming back with feedback like static, so I'm losing sometimes what you're saying. So I don't want it to like show up later.
It could just be the sometimes happens.
It could be the software too.
It,
I know.
it could
I know
it
it's
could
been giving
possibly be the
problems.
software. You should be able to hear me a lot better now. I don't know if you can hear
If you
me.
need me to come in and out, let me know. Yeah, it's still crackly.
It's still
So
crackly.
if I have to ask you to repeat yourself, just
Yeah, that
I'm not being a
yeah,
bitch.
it's okay. We're trying to make this work. But yeah, I mean, I think like I think hard work.
People need to show up.
Yeah,
Like you said, people just need to show up. That's the whole thing. I've sat in full cosplay costume when people have asked me for interviews, been in the green room sitting there, and then they've been like, "Oh, we can't do it today," and I'm
uh,
like, what, or I had a radio show canceled 3 times on me, and 3 times, and each time was a different excuse, and I was in full cosplay, and finally I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. They were like, well, you just lost the chance to be in front of so many people, and I'm like, okay. I was like, it's your third time. Like, and I'm like, and by the third excuse, I was like, you used this excuse the first time. I'm like, you really need to, like, write down the excuses you're using.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it takes me hours to get into this cosplay. I can't just do this. So, but I noticed with, like New Yorkers, they're always there. I had one person who just never showed. I've had podcasts just never show. And I'm like, okay, cool. Thanks. Thanks so much. Moving on. So, it's one of those. So unless I'm requested for cosplay, I don't even offer it anymore because to get into a Fae cosplay or a Queen Aurora cosplay, it'll take me 2-3 hours. So I'm not sitting there with wings and everything else and the headpieces that I'm trying to adjust. I look like Lucille Ball, where I'm balancing it, and then nobody shows. So I don't do it
It
anymore.
it
I learned my lesson.
you know what, and it's also it's kind of heart wrenching because everything today has fallen under this category of becoming an influencer, becoming famous online. Where it used to be, and I remember this, where there was a time where you would just go to, like a local bookstore, you'd have an interaction with some local authors. They came out with a new book, and you'd have local venues. You can hear comics. I had that experience. Like you go out there, you hear them working on their materials and stuff, and some of it's like sucks, and they're like, okay, we get the vibe. And those are the things you kind of looked forward to. And then now, I'm not complaining. Like, it's great that we have social media and you're able to have all of these things, but it's kind of gotten like diluted that, oh, well, I'm giving you the opportunity to be in front of thousands of people. I am giving you this opportunity to be on this platform. And I think that's so disheartening because it's like, is that really what our art and our passion, what we love doing, is really valued? Is by numbers that's on a digital
I
screen?
I think I think that's a good point. I think what's happened is, and I've kind of said this before, just as a writer in general, like I'm so happy when somebody picks up a book of mine. I'm thrilled. Like it's not. I think at least I see this more in the author world. People are like, "Oh, I'm going to allow you into my world," and I'm like, "No, no, 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 no.
No.
That's the opposite. I'm your tour guide. Come on, let's go." Like, I'm so thrilled you're choosing my ride
Right.
in this carnival of books. You get, like, you're picking me? Let's go. I'll do whatever you want. I will bend over backwards. I'm in cosplay because I'm living this life and I'm also trying to show I'm putting my money where my mouth is, that I'm going to live these characters. So I'm thrilled you're picking it because I look back and I'm seeing all of these crazy carnival rides you could get on, and you're picking my little, it's a small world compared to like everything else. So I think some authors have this attitude of like, yes, I'll allow you to join me. And I'm like, you'll, please, I'm giving tickets away. I'm standing out there, I'm on the pole working. Like, I am hustling. I'm so absolutely honored. And I think there's been this shift of people feeling almost entitled, as the artist. And I'm like, no, 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 it's the other way around. Somebody wants to enjoy your art. You really have to open up the gates. Because yes, you're vulnerable in that sense because you are expressing yourself. However, whatever your platform is, whether you're a podcaster, a musician, a poet, whatever.
I didn't even think about
But
poets.
at the
That's a good
same
point.
point,
Yeah.
yeah, like you really have to be inviting. You can't be closed off like, I guess I'll let you. Let me get the velvet rope out. That's not how this game works.
No.
That's not it. And
No.
I think there's a little too much of this, I don't know, this entitlement and this whole Kardashian attitude. And I'm just like, what do I have to do to get you here? I'll do it. And if that means putting
Right.
wings on my back and dressing up, which I've done
Mm-hmm.
many times, and laying it out, then okay, let's go. Because I want you here. I don't want to close it off. That's the last thing I want.
No, I love how you bring up the Kardashians because literally yesterday I got this popped up on my feed of the Kardashians going out grocery shopping. And this just shows you like the level of living in a parallel universe, okay? Because of how famous they are, like obviously they can't go grocery shopping. So They rent out a grocery store to go film so that they can experience the feeling of shopping for their own food. I,
Yeah.
I like, okay, I'm gonna be real with you, and I'm not. I like. I've realized this for just such a long period of time. Yes, we are called the United States, but the difference of culture and quality of artists between the West Coast and the Northeast is like two completely different countries.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's a good way to put it. Like, that's it. I've It's kind of funny that you use like the grocery store thing. I have actually gone shopping in my Aurora crown, just to prove that like I'm living the Fey life 24/7. That's just it. Like I think everybody needs a little magic every day,
Yeah.
and so I'm living the artist life. I left nursing to do this. So it's like, okay, I can either sit here and play in both worlds and try to be logical, and well, we see how far that got me, or or jump in. So yeah, I have an Aurora crown. I've worn it out shopping. I've tried to be a Fae because I'm asking you to spend money on my book. I feel like I can't possibly ask that, and this is probably the Northeast artist in me, and this is the whole don't take me too seriously, but take my art seriously thing, that I'm going to run around dressed like a fae in my everyday life. Because, like I said, I'm asking you to spend hard earned money. I feel like I can't ask you to do that unless I really know it's good. So, in order for me to tell you it's good, I'm going to live it.
Yeah.
Which, if it means putting on my Aurora crown and going shopping, and I got a crystal crown on with like quartz points and an angelite disc, and I'm running around in it, and I got a Chaos Be With You T-shirt on, then that's what I'm doing because I'm trying to say yes, every ounce of me is in this book or in this series.
I I
So
totally get
that's
that.
just what it is.
Yeah, I totally like. For example, for me, it's like if anybody's ever noticed, this podcast is like very '70s themed. There's a there's a reason behind, and I'm very much that's kind of my aesthetic in real life. Like if anybody's ever come to my apartment, or right now I'm living with my mom, but when I do have an apartment, like you can walk in there like, damn, like did you forget this is not the '70s anymore? I'm like, I don't care. That's just me. That's my aesthetic. That's who I am. And like, it's true. Like, I live that not because like it's quote unquote like my dire life path, but that's my identity. That's who I am as a person. That's my style. That's who I'm representing. It's like to
Mhm.
your point. It's like I am making this art. I am writing this. It would be kind of crazy if I'm not actually representing what I'm making. It's like the Kardashians going to Air One. I don't know if it was Air One, but like renting it out
Yeah.
for like
No,
two
I get what you're
hours.
saying. Totally. No, I totally get it. I go back to, I think keyword for this would be vibe. Like that's kind of the theme of this discussion. It is a vibe. You have to kind of embody things, and even in this flow, like I was my whole feel, and I joke there's too many voices in my head. You know, my thing is like when I write, I have to have noise. I gotta have RuPaul's Drag Race going on.
Of course.
I have to have my sound list, my playlist going. Each book has its own playlist. I need noise to drown out the voices because they'll take over and then the book goes off the rails. But that's my flow. I'm not saying it works for everybody, but I enjoy living in my world. I want to live there, and that's how it should be. Does it work for everybody? Heck no.
No.
I've said many times, if you want to know what not to do, come sit next to me, because I've made every single mistake you can possibly imagine, been there, done that, got the t-shirt. It does not work for everybody, but that's part of being an artist. It's my own journey. My journey is not the same as the author sitting next to me. It's not the same as the author I've listened to. It's just not. But that's the artist's life. Our journeys cannot be the same, or else we'd be putting out the exact same thing. And then we would be clinical and boring.
Yeah, and it goes deeper than that when it starts to become this angle, this agenda, where you're not necessarily supposed to be discussing things. You're supposed to go according to the trends and what people are putting out and all of that stuff. I think what gets forgotten a lot of the times is if we all veer towards something that is so temporary and nothing that's necessarily concrete, like the community that you're living in or the people that you surround with yourself every single day. Temporary things are temporary. They don't last. They're just there for a time and then they go. Why work towards something that's temporary instead of working towards something that's more semi-permanent? To me, this sounds logical, but like, I sometimes have like conflicting ideas. Like, well, maybe no. I'm like, you don't know anymore.
I think when I think about community and what you surround yourself with, I look at it in a couple of different ways. One, I don't like people. So, I'm a little bit of a loner in that sense, and it's probably because I'm weird. And so I have, the few people I keep close besides my puppies, and I talk to them, and I swear they answer me back.
They always do.
But totally, totally. My dogs know me better than
Of
anybody,
course.
and yeah, they listen
Of
to me.
course.
They totally know what's going on. My dogs know people better. They're the judges of character. Okay, we all go by. My dogs are
They
good
don't
like
just
that.
bite somebody just
And
because they got a little bit of an issue. Oh, there's a reason.
they're they're perfect. They're a menace to society, but in my eyes, they're angels. Um, and yes, they have shirts that say "menace to society," and you know, a 10-pound Yorkie and a 22-pound Chiweenie. How much damage can they really do?
Um,
Don't challenge that.
yeah, I really no. This is not myth,
Don't
but this is not
challenge that.
MythBusters.
you know, but I think when you look at just who you surround yourself with and how you create, I am very much an introverted creator. I do take what's happened in my life and pour it in my books. I've always said when you look at my books, they are all interpersonal dynamics. Whether I put horns on them, fins, it's still interpersonal dynamics. Serena, my mermaid, is my best friend from high school, Jen. And the reason she's a mermaid is because the chick looked great in a bikini her whole life. And I remember going into CVS and literally she was in cutoffs and a bikini top. And I would say, put a shirt on. She'd go, why? And stare at me and I'd go, that's a pretty good answer. Like she looked good, so I made her a mermaid. But the relationship between her and Queen Aurora is two best friends who, if Aurora said the sky is purple, Serena would look at her and go, yes, it is purple. And then behind closed doors, she'd be like, bitch, what you smoking? But never in front of the court. Behind closed doors, she'd be like, what is the plan here? But everything I write about is still community, and sometimes it's what I wish I had. It's not necessarily what I've experienced. I don't know close relationships with women. I was a fighter my whole life. I competed. I never like punched a girl in the face and was like, let's go for martinis now. And like the Sex and the City theme would play and we'd go trotting off. That never happened. I fought martial arts and competed, and I was in a school of all men. So I never got close to girls because I didn't have any. The only ones I saw was, well, after I punched her in the face, like I said, and then I was like, hey, high five. I didn't know what to do. It was kind of weird. And I did it for most of my life. It was competing. So I didn't, I'll be honest, I was a little immature. I didn't understand it. And so I missed that part. So in my books, my girls are all very close. They're not competing about a guy.
Right.
There's none of that. It's what I wish I had. I had that with Jen, but yes, I do lack that sense of community with women. And I'll be the first to admit sometimes it's my own fault. I don't get it, and then I find myself in situations where I'm like, I'm not one of the girls. What's going on? Like I'm like,
You know what though? I think that comes into also being a bit of like being a bit weird. Like I totally can relate to that is the fact that I was raised in a religious community. and I left. And growing up where I was in an all boys school and then also being gay, like that doesn't really mix very well. So now, like in my late 20s, I'm like most of my friends are girls. Like majority of my friends are all women. It's been like that for years. I have a few guy friends, but I'm never really close to guy friends like. And I don't know. It's just in my personal life experience, I have felt closer to women than I have to guys, and I just have come to accept it. I'm like, you know what? Like, I don't give a shit. Like, I get to go out on girls' night, and so what? I'm a dude. It's like just put quotes around girls, okay? Like, we're not all fully women over here, but
Right.
you know, I don't think it's any. It doesn't make you worse or different than anybody else. I actually think it's kind of a strength. It means you can do something and I can do something most guys and girls have a really hard time doing.
I agree. It doesn't make one thing one way or the other. It's not like a good or bad thing. It took me a long time to realize that, though. I'll be
Yeah.
honest with you. It took me a very long time. Um, but I found it weird in my books. I didn't notice I was doing that
Right.
until someone picked it out and was like, "Oh, you write a chick power book," and I'm like, "I did." It was one of those where I was like, "Huh?" And they were like, "Yeah, all your girls are like really," and I'm like, "Hmm." It was like it took me a second to be like, oh, I didn't. And then I was like, a lot of what's in my book is either stuff I wish I had relationship wise. And I was like, oh, and then some stuff like I knew I put it like Los, the chameleon dragon, is my little dog Carlos. And so, yes, he's written to a T the way he is and the way we are. Jen was specifically put in as Serena, but it was just very interesting the way community was kind of written in subconsciously and consciously. Um, but yeah, it took me a while. I kind of tried to force relationships with girls. I went in a little too giving and a little too open because I was like, I'm going to get more female friends. And then finally I was like, you know what, this just isn't working. Like I remember sitting somewhere where there was a bunch of girls and watching them and sitting back and going, no, nope, nope. It was like kind of one of those Steve Irwin moments
Oh my
where I was like,
god.
let's watch the girls. And I was like observing and I'm like,
Sure.
this is never going to be me. Like at that point, it clicked that I'm like, I can't do this. I will not. Like I was always good being close to one and sitting back. I was never the gaggle of girlfriends like a Sex in the City thing. I watch it, but I'm always like, really? People do like that's just a made up thing.
It's so bizarre, right? Because Sex in the City is one of those weird shows, okay, where yeah, you do have those group of friends, but they're so like so Upper West Side. Okay, I'm just gonna let's so Upper West Side.
It
Okay,
is. It is.
it's just it's a little sometimes hard to watch, especially like when you raise an immigrant and blue collar like family, But like
Mm-hmm.
it's just
It's a very specific
it's
type.
so
It's a very
specific.
specific vibe.
Yes.
It's very very specific. I find as I watched it, I was like, okay. And the biggest thing is, and I'm going to use this term, and there's probably people out there going to cringe when I say it. With women, there's always quiet competition. You don't know you're in competition, and then all of a sudden you're that one person that goes, "Oh, this is happening. What?" And you're kind of like all of a sudden in it. You're just like, "What's happening here?" And it's the one-up conversation, and you're like, "Oh, this happened," and they're like, "Good for the little passive-aggressive comment from someone." And then something else happens. And I didn't catch it until I was diagnosed with myasthenia gravis. It'll be 2 years. Um, and I remember, and people are very uncomfortable with it. It's an incurable neurodegenerative disease. It's an autoimmune disease. And when it happened, I was very much like, what the F is happening here? It hit me hard. And I'm, I'm in a position where I'm not reacting to treatment. And as it was happening, I had some girlfriends, I'll call them, but they call it 2 year slide when you get diagnosed, where things you just slide quick. And at first I had like an eye droop. And I woke up one day and it was just double vision. I could not see anything. I was walking around and I remember the first time I looked at my husband, I went, I gotta go get my eyes checked. What the heck's going on? And then it was like everything was Alice in a Wonderland world. I could not walk. I was bumping into things, and things progressively started getting worse. I started to slur, and then my voice would all of a sudden, I'd sound like the nanny out of nowhere. And I was like, what is, and it was my neurologist. I was down south when it happened. My neurologist up in New York, who I'd been friends with for 10 years, I called him. And he was like, I'm telling you what this is. This is myasthenia gravis. You need to come back up here. He flew me back up, saw me. The flare was just ending. The flare lasted about 3 months. And he was like, baby doll, this isn't good. I'm not going to sugarcoat this for you. And that's what I loved about him. He never sugarcoated anything. But as it progressed, it started to affect my legs. And I started kind of walking like I was drunk some days, and my legs would get weak. So basically, it attacks the neural end plates, the motor end plates of your muscles, and they get weak all of a sudden. And so things started happening, and then I was put on immunosuppressants. So I'm a boy in a bubble now. But people around me started to like pull back because what are they going to say? Oh, you can fight through this? There's no fighting it. As Zabo told me, my doctor, he was like, it's a tsunami that's going to hit you. It's coming. There's no doubting. It's a matter of how high ground you get to watch it come. But this thing's going to get you. And I'm like, okay. And what I noticed was people started saying stuff like, you're going to beat this. And I'm like, okay, what part of there's no cure? Oh. And you're like, okay. And then it became how it affected them. And I'm like, it was making them uncomfortable. And I'm like, cool. But you get depressed. Like, my hands don't work as well anymore. I was a semi pro athlete. All of a sudden, I can't fight. That's weird for me. Like, I can't throw down. Myself on here, myself being able to throw down whenever I wanted. I'm 5 foot nothing, but I'm cool if a guy steps to me. No problem. No questions asked. I can handle myself. All of a sudden, I'm like, which one in the middle do I hit? Because I got triple vision. I remember going to a Galaxy Con I was contracted at, hitting a Lego table by accident. This guy had, it was setup day. He was setting them up because I couldn't walk right. And the guy having a fit and wanting to like throw down with me right then and there. Now I was ready to go, but I couldn't figure out which one to punch in the middle because there were so many of them. Um, but people around me getting very much like they couldn't deal with me because nobody knew what to say. And I remember saying to someone, I don't know if I can write anymore. My hands aren't working. I'm slurring. I'm not responding to treatment. And in the middle of it, they're like, you can always talk to me. And I was like, all right, cool. And they were like, oh my God, I have so much writing to do. My life is getting so great. And I was like, huh? I and it was one of those moments where like, I'm telling you, like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it. And they just started talking about all the wonderful things they have coming up. And I was like, oh, okay. And they just kept going. And I was sitting there going, cool. I'm happy for you. That's great. And I'm like, how many minutes ago did I say, I don't know if I can continue writing? Like, I'm not responding to treatment. And that's when I went, I really got to figure out how I pick friends because this is not working out. And that's when I thought I have been forcing female friendships to feel like I belong to a community that maybe doesn't want me. And I'm not saying all females, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I wasn't picking them right because I thought as a woman, I'm supposed to have that Sex in the City group. And so I forced it. And now here I am in a time of need, and these are not the people I should be leaning on. And that's when I was like, okay, pull back, find your tribe, but this is not it because society tells you this, or this is what you've been presented. This is not what you need right now. And so I pulled back. And that's when I learned kind of, okay, time, irons up, shield up, and step back and figure it out. But it's weird that sometimes it takes something difficult to kind of go inward and go, what do I need? Not what society's telling me you need or the picture that's being presented.
It's heart wrenching because I'm not in your same shoes. My heart goes out to you, especially when you're dealing with something like that. I mean, first off, you got somebody that you love about and you care about, and you have your own art and the thing that kind of basically keeps your heart pumping, and you can't even do it. And then you have people around you that don't even understand you. And I can understand it from the level of when I left the cult community I came from. A lot of the people that I became very close with were people that also left the cult like I did. And for us to talk, two of them were really good friends. They're a lesbian couple. They live in Brooklyn. And they're both artists and they're like super creative. Just to be able to spend time with them and to be able to talk and, like you said, just be able to say, hey, like, I don't know if I'm going to make it to the next, I don't know if I can write. And that's it. And they process that information and they hear you and they're like, yeah, I totally feel you. I remember when I went through this and you're just sitting there like, oh my God, I'm actually in front of somebody that can understand me. And it doesn't have to be a female. It could be any gender. It could be any kind of person. I think that what we force ourselves to believe is that we have to fit into these demographics. We need to fit in these boxes. But every single one of us is different. And the real friends that really stick around, if it's a guy, so be it. If it's a guy that can really care for you and be there for you, sometimes they end up being your husband. You know what I mean?
It's yeah, it's I will say writing is obvious. I mean, I've had people say, "Oh, are you going to write this into your books?" I will never write my Myasthenia gravis into my fantasy books because I don't want to do a disservice to it. But I realized I also cannot be the the friend I need to be to some people because they want energy, they want happy, and sometimes I just don't have it in me. Like I can't solve all your problems right now. Maybe I was that friend to you before. I don't have it right now. I don't have it to give. But at the same point, yeah, I don't need a fixer either. Like sometimes I just want to be like, what, this sucks. I'm worried. I'm feeling this way, and you just want somebody to go, yeah, that sucks. Like you don't want anything else. You just want that. And this is a hard subject for people to digest because they want to help. They totally want to help you. And you're like, I don't want that. So this whole experience has taught me about friendship, about pulling in. I'm with my puppies, I'm with my husband. Yes, I'm very cut off because I'm immunocompromised and I'm on uh, different types of therapies that keep me in close. And people always say, but I know somebody who's on something similar to you, and they had an organ transplant and they're out doing things. I'm like, yes, but if I get sick, there's three ways you can get an exacerbation or cause one. An exacerbation is where the muscles around the intercostal muscles for my lungs stop working. So I will basically suffocate in my own body. I will be completely aware, and I've come close once to this, where the muscles just stop working. So my lungs would be fine, but the muscles that help me breathe stop. So there's too much of an acetylcholine buildup and it can't get broken down, and the neurotransmitters cannot get where they need to send the signal from my brain to my muscles to say, keep working, keep contracting. So if I get sick, um, pain or stress will cause this. So being immunocompromised, immunosuppressed means no, I cannot. The common cold, flu, the newest strain of COVID causes a problem. So no, when you are severely suppressed, and I'm on a lot of immunosuppressants, a very high dose, no, I'm stuck in these four walls. And people are like, that seems really extreme. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm trying to keep these flares down. We're called the snowflake disease because we all have different symptoms, severity, but our flares can last from the time a snowflake melts to the length of winter. I've had a year where I flared 8 months out of 12. Double vision, all of that. So when you have friends who are like, but you look good, you look fine. You're like, I get that, but you don't know what's going on all in here. So I would say overall, all of this has taught me a lot about pulling back, evaluating, and I guess it goes down to that old quality versus quantity thing. But I have created different types of art out of it. And I think from a writing standpoint, it's definitely given characters a little more of an emotional depth. in how I look at things, but I will never write this disease in because what am I going to do? Have a dragon show up with like a potion and be like, drink this, you're cured. I think the MG Society would come after me. They should have gone after the Madam Web movie a lot more because that was BS. But, you know, I try to keep the two worlds separate for now
I
because I'm trying to give myself a way out.
Yeah, and it's also being able to be realistic with it. You're right. I mean, for example, in your case, it's not an easy situation to be living in, and it can be especially quite difficult. But being able to have a creative outlet is something that is so valuable. I mean, for myself, something that I have had to come to terms with is that even though I quote unquote live in the real world, I'm very oblivious. There's things that I'm just not aware of. I just never experienced before. And there's things that I've had to learn about my own brain that I never realized before in my life. You know, when you live and you have disabilities and everybody tells you like why you're so slow and why can't you do things and why can't you handle certain things. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just trying to survive. I'm just trying to it's it's overwhelming when people can't understand that you as an individual have limitations. And I've tried telling this to another friend of mine is that some people just have limitations. And if you can't accept that they have limitations, well, find somebody else then to be around. Not everybody can handle certain things. There's certain things I can't handle at all. I can't handle fucking stupidity. I lose my goddamn shit.
I'm avert to stupidity too. I have an aversion to stupidity
Can't
myself.
hate stupidity.
Yeah, yeah, and that's about half the country. But, no, there's look. I have a hard time admitting my own limitations right now. I'm somebody that a couple of years ago I was doing butterfly kicks. Before I was diagnosed, I was actually getting ready to go back in the ring for a Muay Thai fight. I had a coach down in Charlotte. I was working out at Ultimate Gym, which was a Christy Martin sanctioned gym. Doug was phenomenal, and I was fighting. And I was like, I'm getting back in the ring to one Muay Thai fight. I was crazy about it. And now here I am going, I don't know if I could, get in the ring. I have no idea. There's no way I could even get through. I was doing an hour and a half training 3 times a week in the rings. And then I was lifting 2 to 3 times a week. Right now, I'm lucky if I'm on my body app doing a 4 weeks for everybody workout with Autumn for 20 minutes, like twice a week. I had the Fight Camp app. I was doing that. I was doing everything. I mean, I was a martial artist for my whole life. I was throwing butterfly kicks. Vincent Lin was one of my coaches at one point. I coached with Jing Bong Jun. I remember I rented him out for a whole weekend before Worlds and did nothing but wushu with that man, who by the way, is just the most incredible person in the world. From an athletic standpoint, he ran next to me and I didn't even know he was running, like because his upper body did not move. Like I looked at it, it was like a cartoon. He was running, but his upper body was completely still and it was like they were detached. It was amazing. He was on the Beijing wushu team with Jackie Chan and Jet Li. Just phenomenal. My body hurt for a month after training with him. I can't imagine going out in my backyard right now and being like, I'm going to throw a butterfly kick into an aerial, but I used to. And so to now look at it and go, oh, I'm not doing that. I I don't do that anymore. Is so hard. I can go into Home Depot and start walking. And if I walk at a steady pace, I'm fine. But if I do the stop start, I look like I'm drunk. And I've had people stop and be like, are you okay? And it's like, you don't want to turn around and be like, I have myasthenia gravis. I look like I'm drunk. And I don't want to get the cane, but I got the cane. Do I use it when I'm supposed to? Heck no, because I want to dazzle it out, and preferably I want a Joker cane so I look like Harley Quinn walking around town. Um,
Yeah,
that's just how I am.
love it.
So I'm still working on my accepting my own limitations. So do I expect society to all of a sudden click and go, let's accept her limitations? No, I know that's not going to work because we're full of idiots.
No, you know what though? It's hard when you have like we're talking about is having things that you're passionate about, things that drive you. You know, for example, art, or for example, if it's even martial arts. Even though like working out physically and doing exercise can be something you could be really passionate towards, and then your life completely changes to the point where you can't really do those things anymore. It's even harder when that happens where you can't even do art anymore, where you can't even write. So not only do you lose one passion, but you lose multiple passions that you care about doing. And for for myself, for example, I've never ran into this issue. You have. It's not easy because then you ask yourself the question, then what the hell am I here for? Because regardless of what religion or faith that you have, I kind of under this philosophy you get one life. So what are you going to do with it? And then you find the things you really care about and are passionate for, and then bam, just life slaps you in the face. And you're like, okay, what do I do now?
I'm being to be as honest and as vulnerable as I can be with you right now.
Yeah,
Um, there's some anger.
yeah,
I have some anger right now. There's I used to fight choreograph and film every fight scene in my book. There, every fight scene in the 8 books that are out right now, there is videotape of me, and sometimes my dogs are balancing with me, and there's swords in my hands, and every single scene has been written was done by me, and I would videotape it at multiple angles to figure out how to write it because I'm like, oh, should I write it from this person's point of view, from that person's point of view? How would I do it? To know that I still have a series to finish and I'm not going to be able to do that eats at me because I still have to figure out how am I going to do it, and I don't want anybody else doing it because nobody knows how Morgan moves, how Ace is going to move. Nobody knows these characters the way I do and how they're going to move.
right.
So there is still a piece of me that's not willing to let that go. And don't get me wrong, I'm still thinking that there is some drug out there that's going to allow me to at least get through that. Um, and there does feel like this is a slap in the face. I have finished volume 2. That is done. Volume 3 is probably the first book is maybe 25% done. And I have said to my husband, what if I'm not able to finish? And that will bring tears to my eyes because I feel like the custodian of these characters, and I think I have to find a way to get it done, whether it's uh, recording it and having somebody transcribe it, but still to not be able to stand up and move like them and do all that because that was something I prided myself on was this realistic, embodiment of everybody. It's really hard when you don't make the choice and the choice is made for you.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet. I'm still very new into this journey, and I've talked to myasthenia patients that are like, "Oh, it gets better. Don't worry about it. You figure this out." And I'm like, "Mother effers, I want to throw something at you and hit you because I am so not. I'm not there, and I'm not willing to get there. Um, I'm not sure. I try to find a new spin on things,
Yeah.
but no, I'm not like happy as rainbows and sunshines and puppies yet. And when I've talked to like myastheniagravis.org and we talk about things, they're like, you're still a little negative. And I'm like, damn straight, I'm negative. I am. No, we are not Brady Bunches yet. I hope one day to be singing Sunshine Day with everybody. And for all of you older people, you'll know exactly what song that is. But for everybody else,
Mm.
sorry, just look it up. It's great. Um, but
Sunshiny
I'm
day.
not there because yes, I've lost certain aspects and they were not by decision. I didn't retire. I didn't retire out on top and go, I'm done with the ring. It's okay. I didn't, pull a Layla Ali and step back. Somebody went yoink and Scooby Dooed it on me. So there's a little
Yeah, but you know
piece.
what?
That's ooh.
You know what's interesting though, and I love. By the way, I love these mentions. You are just fucking killing it through this podcast. Um, Ali, towards the end of his life, was heart wrenching because he went from a man that was a proud fighter to this decrepit old man that was dying of Parkinson's disease. It was,
Mhm.
to be honest, it was kind of hard to even look at him or watch anything.
Yeah,
You just like, why are you doing that to the poor man? Just let him die peacefully. Um,
agreed. 100%.
you know what? A lot of people, especially in martial arts, have incredible careers throughout their lives. Sadly, sometimes in your case, people run into illnesses and things like this. Unfortunately, there are no cures for. And it is very hard to restructure your entire life because this was your life. You can't. What people don't understand, and again, I'm sorry if I'm comparing this, and I'm going to give this idea of also like coming out of a cult is a great example, and it kind of plays along with this too. Is you live a cushion life believing you're in a utopia and everything is great, and the second you walk out those doors and you walk out onto those streets, you realize, holy fuck, how am I supposed to survive? I
Mhm.
have to
I get it.
redo my whole life again all over. It's not like you could just re-download a fucking file on your computer. It just doesn't work
Yeah.
that way.
No, I get it. I totally get what you're saying. The thing with being a martial artist is either you do it for fitness and you're not really a martial artist, you're a martial enthusiast, or you're an artist. You're a martial artist, you walk the walk, you walk the path. You know who Bruce Lee is, you know who Jet Li is, you know all these people. It's not something where you're like, Bruce Lee, okay, I get it. He wore the outfit, and you're like, he does nunchucks, and that's it. It's like, Brandon Lee, the lineage, and you get it. You know Jet Kundo. You don't think of Bruce Lee and go, he does kung fu, right? Like, you get a little past it.
Yeah.
You know wushu. You understand what wushu is. You're not just like, is that like kung fu, or do I order that on the Chinese food menu? Like,
Yes.
you understand these
Right.
things. You know taekwondo, and you get that there's two types. There's not just the Olympics. There's there's certain idiosyncrasies. Um, when you're a martial artist, it's in your bones. It doesn't matter if you stop practicing. It physically, you're always still practicing. You know, um, to this day, I don't care what belt I have. I have different black belts. My greatest moment is the day I won my first underbelt grand championship, and I was judged by Michael Jai White,
Oh wow.
Spawn. He walked in, yeah, and this was right after he had done Spawn, and he was doing the Mike Tyson
Oh
biopic.
my god. Yeah.
So he walked into the tournament totally unannounced, completely unannounced. It was a children's benefit
Oh my
tournament.
god.
It was up in, I believe it was Reading, Connecticut. It was Wilmington. Um, and he walked in totally like nobody knew he was going to
That
be
is
there.
so
And we were
random.
all lined up. And he knew one of the guys running it.
Uh huh.
And so we were lined up. And I remember it was the first tournament my instructor had come to, because my instructor used to send me to tournaments by myself. And so I would just drive up and down the Northeast coast and do tournaments. And my instructor finally decided to come to one. And I had made it to grand champion. And I was pretty excited. And the entire grand champion core was made up of everybody from one school. They had just swept all the divisions. I was a little white girl. I'm half Puerto Rican, just by the way. But a little white girl. Everybody else was from, we called them the Barney team, because the team was all purple and yellow. And they were from Jamaica, Queens. And I was like,
Oof.
darn it. And it was all weapons, and they were doing musical forms, and I
Yeah.
was the winner from traditional, which means I had no backflips, no splits. I was in a white uniform because my instructor liked when I did plain stuff. I hated him for it. And I was like, I'm gonna lose. And then Spawn walks in. And everybody's like, because that. He was the first major karate guy to make that jump to film, and no less Spawn. You know, this was like Todd McFarlane, oh my God, for the geeks out there. So he walks in, and all of a sudden, we're all lined up, and we had a center judge. And he goes, I'm going to take this ring over. Does anybody mind? And I remember literally my heart going from my throat back to my stomach. And I looked at my instructor. My instructor just went, meh, it was a good run. Like he was just like, this game is over. Honey Bunch, we're done. And he was like, I just remember giving me the thumbs up, like it was a good try. And he was sitting next to the coach for the other team. And the coach turned to him and went, which one's yours? And he went, the little one. And he was like, all of mine. And my instructor was like, that's great. And he's like, and he looked at me, was, it's about quality, not quantity. And meanwhile, he's sweating bullets because he's like, we're done. Spawn walks in, clears everybody out, and he goes, this is how we're going to do it. I'll set the hard deck at the first three. Make sure you're sitting properly. He didn't want anybody's legs out. I was second to last to go. So I had to sit through about 15 people, and I'm like, oh Lord, oh Lordy. I watch bows being spun, music blasting, and for some reason everybody like had the same songs. You know, it was all like the same. Are you ready for this? Everybody was doing their at that point, you know. And then it was my turn, and I was doing Wadong, plain and simple. I get up, I scream my name, judges, my name is the whole thing, and I'm like, I'm doing this in front of Spawn. I finish, and I see my scores. 9.7, 9.6, 9.7, and I'm adding them up in my head. And I'm like, okay, maybe if he drops this one. And I'm looking at my instructor, and he's like going, two, maybe you got 2 points, maybe you're second place. Last person goes, and then my instructor, I see his eyes go real wide. And I'm looking at him like, what? And he goes, I think you won. And I'm like, there's no way. And I'm like, no, no. He's like, I think he won. And all of a sudden, my name gets called. And I walk up, and I'm like, okay, okay, stay calm, stay calm. There's 4 people up there, and they arrange us. And Spawn comes over to me. He goes, first place, bow. And I just remember sweating because I thought I was going to throw up. And then he comes over to me, and I go, is there anything I could have done better? And he goes, I'm sorry, what? And I go, is there anything I could have done better? He goes, come walk with me. And he looks at my instructor, puts his hand up. He goes, I'm going to borrow her. And he goes, you understand you won, right? I go, yeah. He goes, well, because you asked. He spent 15 minutes with me, giving me a new introduction, new opening form. And that to this day is my proudest moment. And he's like, I expect to see you. He went and told that story to someone else. I was being interviewed on a podcast. He went, you're that little girl? And I went, what do you mean? He goes, I was talking to him. He goes, probably about a year ago. And he said, he talked about some girl, and he still remembers you because she asked after she won, what could I have done better?
Right.
And I was like, that was like, I don't even know how long ago. But he had just done it. He goes, he still remembers you. And I went, and I'm done. I was like, I'm done. Let me take my bag right now. I don't care what black belts I have. I don't care being in the Hall of Fame. I don't care about my silver medal. The fact that Spawn doesn't know my name, just remembered some little white girl who asked him what she could have done better. That's it. I was like, I'm done. Just take my bow now and leave. But I said, that's being a martial artist. When another good one can remember, and remember you were polite, respectful, you're finished. That's a martial artist. You're always looking to improve.
I mean, that leaves a mark on the person. You know, look, I'm not going to be the one of the person that said, coulda, woulda, shoulda. But one of the most amazingest things is the fact that, like, you're able to have those experiences and those memories to hold on to. Not just because they're memories and experiences, because those are the moments that not only they shaped you as an individual. To be able to stand there. And, like, come on, most people are going to be cocky and they'll be like, I would do that too. No, you wouldn't, okay? You'd be standing there like a cocky ass and be proud and your chest is out and all that glam. Like, it's so rare for somebody to be like, hey, mister, yeah, why did I win? And they're like, win? What do you mean? Why did you just win? You know, for that,
It was
yeah, for that exact
just
reason.
one of those moments. Well, my instructor, after I went back, told him, he goes, I go, but you told me to ask that question. He goes, when you lose. I go, okay, you never specified when I lose. He goes, and they looked at me, he goes, do you ask that every time? I go, yeah. And I just remember he smacked his forehead and he was like, I told you to ask that when you lose. I'm like, you never specified. And he just walked away and he just shook his head. And he was like, I didn't know I had to be so literal with
Oh
you.
my god.
And he was just pouting, walking away. And I remember dragging the trophy. It was a 6 foot tall trophy. And it was like scratching the floor. And he just walked over. He goes, give me the trophy. And then he goes, by the way, good job. And then he's like, and he's pouting, walking away. He's like, seriously? He's like, every time I send you alone, he's like, if you win. And I go, I haven't lost yet. And he just goes, shut up, we'll deal with this at the dojo. And he just kept going back. And he was so mad at
Was
me
he
because
Italian?
he was like, no, he was Irish,
He was
McLaughlin.
Irish.
Oh, yeah, he was Irish. And the man beat my ass every day for 10
He
years.
enjoyed it.
And, oh, I enjoyed it. He loved it. He said the first day we met, he said, you will either be my greatest accomplishment or my failure.
Wow.
I was his greatest accomplishment. I gave that man a lot of gray hairs. He did not have any gray hairs when I started. He had a lot when I left. I drove him absolutely batshit crazy.
Good.
Um, I drove that man crazy. I mean, how he didn't wind up in a straitjacket by the time I was done there, I really don't know. But I drove him crazy. I mean, when I think of some of the stuff I pulled now, I'm like, wow, I only 2 broken noses and like 10 broken times I broke my ribs. I got off light when I think about some of the crap I pulled. I mean, but overall, he was he was still the best. From him, I went to Vincent Lin, and then I bounced around after that and wound up with the WKA at the World Championships in 2008. But
Great year.
no, McLaughlin was my first, so I had a great time.
Yeah.
I've had a great time. I've been coached by Jerry Fontenez, Vasily Fontenez. I mean, I've met some of the best in there. So Superfoot Wallace knew my name. I had a good time. I really had a good time in martial arts. It's been the best experience of my life is to be with martial arts. So there's really, Dougie Peoples judged me I was very close to Dougie Peoples. He was one of the best. Pedro Xavier knew who I was. Been up and down the East Coast. I've got to travel. I'm in 2 Hall of Fames. So it's been a blast. Every mark on my body that I've gotten, every hairline fracture, every orbital socket that's been fractured and broken. I've been up at West Point. I've been
Oof.
chased out of West Point. you know,
Yeah.
Fighting the cadets is a very different circumstance.
Yeah. For
Very,
anybody not familiar,
very.
it's a military town. It's 100.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
wouldn't.
100% military town.
I don't suggest going up there alone and fighting.
No.
I don't.
No.
Nope, nope.
No.
That was one of those moments that I was like, Danielle, you could have thought of a much better plan than this. I left there. Yeah, I left there with the trophy and all, but I left there with a lot of bruises. A lot of bruises. Oh, and if they ever invite you to go back and fight for their sparring day, don't go.
No.
Don't go.
No.
I learned that one. That's a bad. Don't date it and don't date a cadet, especially a freshman cadet who's on the team who's looking to prove something. And if they have a cast on their
Oh my
arm and they
god.
swear they won't hit you with it, when you get a good punch in, they'll back fist you in the eye real quick. Real quick.
Because they love you.
Trust me. Trust me on that one.
Because they love you.
Yeah, bad idea.
Of course. But I it's really interesting where in a sense as an author, you have had one book of your life, which has been martial arts. And then unfortunately due to a horrible disease, which I don't know why more of these diseases don't have enough cures and stuff. But anyway, we can get into that conversation another day, which is just bizarre. But you basically have to start rewriting a whole new book. And the issue is because of how well made was the last book and how raw this story is. it's harder to be able to write those pages. It's not as easy as the other one was before, right?
Rewriting and like tackling everything differently now.
Yeah,
I have to really think about how I do everything. Um, I have to take breaks. Um, I'm not really sure. I'm gonna give being honest, like just I'm not sure how I'm moving forward right now. I think I have plans, and then they go by the wayside real quick.
yeah.
Um, it's not things are not. I had everything like so planned out. Um, and now I have to rely a little more on my husband. Whereas before I was like, I got this. I can do this. It's fine. I know how I'm gonna do this. I've handwritten all my books. All 8 books were handwritten because this brain only works that way. I have to hand, and I don't write them in order. There's a method to my madness, but it's madness. If you picked up one of the journals and opened it, page one would be somewhere on page 369 in book two. It's one of those. I don't write anything in order. Um,
You make
I
puzzles.
have to. It's one of like up here, and
I love it.
it's
I
noisy.
love it.
It's so noisy. I've joked that King Jarvok, his real name in those is Farjuk, but my dyslexia, once I got to the keyboard, renamed him. So you can't, this brain does not work
Oh, I
normal.
totally get that. I have dyslexia too. Like
Yeah, it's
I just just an idea. We've talked about dyslexia on this podcast, and I would love for you to, for example, get into this. I had when I was seeing those friends, we were on Coney Island, and we wanted to like go get some food and whatever, and Jude was just terrified because me and Shane both have dyslexia, and I have like just directional dyslexia. Everybody like understand.
so do I.
So like you try to get around like, Coney Island, like good luck trying to find your place back on the beach. And like Jude was freaking out, and I was like, okay, I have a way of us getting back. Just just work with my madness. My way of doing it is I follow the same steps I took before. So I go the exact same direction that we went prior. Like I don't know, it's very hard to explain this. Like the same way of like you open up the book and you're on page 395 with just don't try to have me explain my madness. It works. It works.
I
It works.
you preaching to the choir. Preaching to the choir. I only learned martial arts by watching a mirror. That's the only way my instructor could teach me forms. I had to watch him in the mirror. And then he's the one who figured it out. So in all of my martial arts, I always had a Wonder Woman wristband on my left arm. And he finally figured out because he tried to teach me the bow, which is why I don't work with the bow staff, because I hit that man so many times. Because I was standing there with the bow, and I'm like, okay, first of
You
all, I looked
wanted
at
to
him,
hit him. You wanted to.
and
You wanted to hit him so
he was
bad.
like, take the bow and go to your left. And he was standing on my right. And I was like, bam. And he's like, Danielle, back to start. And I went back to start. And I'm like, okay. And I'm listening to him. He's like, take the staff, move it to your left. And I stepped right out and hit him again to the right. And I remember, and I was just, oh, sorry. All right. No, I'm just nervous. And he's like, so finally he's like, take the staff and move it. And then he showed me, but I had to look in there, and I had worn the Wonder Woman band before, and finally he went, move your Wonder Woman arm that way, follow it, and I did it, and I went that way, and he was like, let me try something else. And then he's like, take staff, move it to your right, boom, right back to and he's like, okay. He's like, first of all, I'm taking the staff away now. He's like, you cannot have this weapon. No, 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 no. He's like, bad idea.
Bad idea.
But he started teaching me by saying, move the Wonder Woman band arm. And once he did that, we had a lot less mistakes. Um, and that's when I was like, oh. So we eventually figured it out, and that's how he taught me. Everything was by the mirror. But I'm a southpaw fighter because of my dyslexia. because I couldn't, when he would tell me to mirror people, all of that got lost in my brain. So I started fighting Southpaw simply because of watching people. So I couldn't figure out, put your right foot back. I always step back with my left. And he would look at me and go, Danielle, put your right foot back. And I'd be like, it is back. And he would just be staring at me like, which one of these things is not like the other? And I'm still standing there looking at him like, so I fought lefty only because of dyslexia.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm a southpaw fighter. It's not because it's my strongest hand. It became my strongest hand. So now when doctors ask me, are you a righty or a lefty? I look at them, I go, well, that's a
It
complicated
is.
question.
Because I write with my right
No,
hand, but I use my left hand.
I fight,
Yeah.
and they look at me and go, "I'm just gonna say ambidextrous, and we're just gonna leave it at that." And they just kind of laugh
It's
at me, and I'm like, "It's just complicated, and you know." But yeah, I dyslexia, so my books are all handwritten. It makes it difficult now because the myasthenia is my forearm and my right arm has become very very weak, and to hold a pen, even to hold a fork now is difficult with how my fingers have gotten. So going forward, I don't have a plan on writing volume three. Even making edits, thank God, volume two is completed. I mean, it's still got to be edited here and there. Books two and three, one is finished. Thank God. But I don't know what I'm going to do going forward. I have to come up with a new plan because I do need to handwrite. I don't know why it's the muscle connection. You know, I like the feeling of paper. Also, I always have paper with me. I always have a journal. So if I get an idea, I'm like, oh, that's good. Let's write, you know. So will it be voice memo? I don't, I really don't know. It's going to be something that I do have to figure out. And that's part of this myasthenia journey. I've joked more that maybe my next passion project will be a day in the life of a myasthenia patient and then string all the days together because one is never like the other. It's each day is different. You can have a day where you're fine and you're like, I'm fine. I don't need any help. You know, you're kind of like an addict. You're like, this is fine. I don't need no stinking help. And the next day you're like, I need help getting out of the bathtub. So I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm just kind of exploring this
I know.
and seeing,
It's not.
you know, and then we'll see.
No, it's heart wrenching to hear you talk about this because I have a very dear friend of mine. She she's Cushing's disease, and she developed cancer twice. We believe that she developed cancer because she was one of the first responders during 9/11. So we think she probably breathed in the dust and stuff. And it's heart wrenching because there's times where I call her and she's just going through a lot mentally, and some days are great for her and other days are just horrendous. Her Cushing's can compare to anything. It could be rashes, it could be she's getting pain, she's getting severe headaches. It's so hard because she's in a part of her life where she's worked tirelessly. She's in her 40s and she likes being independent. She's living in a new place, and I just I want her to have the best life, even though she's in pain constantly.
Yep.
She's working overnight, taking care of people that are recovering, like drug addicts, and you know, what I'm trying to say is that if you know people that are going through things like this, you know what effect it has on people's lives, especially when people are trying to just be their creative self. Like we said earlier, you're not trying to be, like the top superstar rock star. This is just who you are as a person. This has been your whole life. You've always been a creative, artistic person. You've always loved writing. You always loved doing martial arts. And then your whole life turns around, and people got to remember, and I got to remember this too, that life doesn't always go the way that you want it to. And unfortunately, we plan and we plan and we plan. And it doesn't always go the way that you want it. It really doesn't.
I think I think there's two sides to the coin a little bit. There's the person who's living it,
Yeah.
and then there's the people watching it. And you want to help
Oh, I do.
because that's just what you want
I
to do.
know.
You want to help. And everybody who's going through it has different needs. There are some people who need that constant, that person there, that constant
We're just
presence.
talking. I know.
Yeah. And then there's some people that need to retreat because they're trying to figure it out. And sometimes they need to figure it out before they can allow anybody in. So I think you kind of have to figure it out, and you've got to remember there's caregiver burnout, and there's so many different facets to it that people who are around you as the closest person to that person who's going through it, there needs to be grace on all sides. And I think people have to remember that if someone is going through something like this, whether they're the person affected with the disease or the person who's closest, if they ghost or if they pull back, it's not time for judgment.
No.
That's the biggest thing. Sometimes they're doing it to protect everybody. They're doing it because they cannot give you the energy that maybe they feel you deserve. And having that conversation, let me tell you something, it's not always time because people are not receptive to that. You know, I have people who are like, you're ghosting people, you're doing that. And it's like, I don't have the energy to sit here and explain that. I can't be the friend you need for you to come back and go, but I don't need anything and for us to go back and forth. I don't have it right now. I can't give it to you. And sometimes I don't want to sit here and tell you, look, you don't do well in these situations, and I get it. So I'm letting you off the hook for you to come back and say you do well, and then for me to point out that you don't, you know what I mean? Like, this is too much of an energy exchange. So for me to just walk away with no hard feelings, nothing bad, and just be like, hey, you go do you. I wish you all the best, is the nicest way I can do this without me pointing out, well, you're not going to give me this, and I can't give you that, blah, 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 blah. So I think people have to remember when someone's going through something like this, whether they're the caregiver or the person afflicted, you need to have grace. And if they step away, you have to go, you know what? They're doing what they need to do right now. This is not the time for me to then go and run around and badmouth and judge or do whatever. I just have to say, they're going through something that I can't understand and walk because whether it's cancer, whether it's a disease like this, my disease is so rare, there's not even a lot of research going on because it's not a moneymaker. And I have exhausted most of treatments, and I'm called refractory. I'm not reacting. I'm not, you know, I'm kind of all over the place with it. So we've tried everything. I've lost 30 pounds. At one point, I was down to 85 pounds on the treatment because my body was like, we don't like this crap. So I can't get up to 100 pounds still. But I have to stay on it because I cannot risk an exacerbation. So I can't be bothered with BS. And it's not that friends are BS, but sometimes, I don't have the energy for some of the stuff. And I want to be there for them. But I can't be because what little energy I have, I want to give to my husband. I want to give to my pups. My pups I love them to death, but one of my pups has a tracheal stent. He's on limited time. I have to like acknowledge that. I want as much time as I can with that little puppy because he's my soulmate. He sat through every IV treatment with me. And when the nurse missed, let me tell you, that little puppy got real mad real quick. That's where I want to spend the time. So I think there needs to be more grace and less judgment. And when you're with somebody who is in pain and you see them losing their independence, as my husband's watching me lose mine, I mean, they took away my license. I'm not supposed to be driving because my double vision can come and go at any point. Um, it's hard when I'm like, I just want to go for a drive. I just got to get out of the house. And I'm like, can you take me somewhere, please, Dad? It's like, oh my God. Where when you got to get out of the bathtub and you can't, and you're like, I need help. All these losses of independence, it's hard. And it's hard for him just to watch it happen. So overall, it's got to be grace.
Yeah.
And that's a great place to end it, isn't it? I just finish that off for you, like, no problem. We just need Sunshine Day to be going, and we're
No,
good. That's a Brady Bunch right there.
no. Honestly, though, Danielle, like I seriously appreciate this because it's not just about having a conversation with artists. It's also about being able to have real conversations, because I think all of us go through different things that we're sometimes uncomfortable to talk about, and sometimes it needs to be said. You know, I put on a happy face. You put on it. We all put on happy faces. But I promise you, none of our lives are easy. And veering towards materialistic things, I promise you, will never bring you any happiness. If you veer towards things that physically or spiritually give you purpose and meaning, they're a lot more valuable. You don't have to put a price tag on them. And I think you very nicely and cleanly pointed that out. So
Thank you. I appreciate
my
that.
pleasure. Um, we've mentioned about your book. I know you got some social media as well. Where can these wonderful people find you on the World Wide Web?
The best place people could find me, will do shameless self promotion time. Everybody can find me on Instagram. That's the best place, which is DM Orsino. That's Orsino, author. Instagram is where I am most active, but I am on Facebook under the same handle. My website is dmorsino.com. And then I have a YouTube channel, Danielle M. Orsino. You can check out interviews there. Once Upon an Author, my podcast season 1 is there as well, where I tell you all of these stories and all the dumb things I've done becoming an author. And I've done a lot of them, unfortunately. And then my books are on Amazon as well, and books 1 through 8. And then I have volume 2 coming out in probably November, I think is when it's coming out. And Marguerite Gavin, who does the Hollow series from Kim Harrison, she is my voice for volume 2, which I'm very excited about, A Fool's Journey. And that is my Succubus series. So it's Legacies of Light and Dark. And I'm very excited. And then I have a game coming out from Mythia, which will be a choose your own adventure game. So you will get to play and be in the world of the Veil. And you get to have a dragon and all that good stuff and live in the tournament and live in my world a little bit. So I would say just sign up on Instagram, go to Instagram, sign up for my newsletter and get all this really cool stuff. And then I'll be doing some giveaways to celebrate all this stuff. So I'm pretty excited.
I love that. And I mean, hey, how many books do you know can you actually go into the realm on a video game? So I'm just saying, start clicking, because
right now we're doing from Mythia, we're doing Choose Your Own Adventure, and there'll be several books involved in that. First book will be out probably I think they said maybe September, book 1. Because they have that one first book, Choose Your Own Adventure, and that is based on my dragon tournament. So this is how you qualify for the dragon tournament. And my lead character's name is Cain, and he has a dragon called Alakisha, and you get to be Cain and find out if you and Alakisha can possibly get into the tournament of Fire, Ice, Acid. So it's kind of a big deal. And I kind of love Cain.
Come on, I know mythical and fantasy things are kind of like that. Dragons? Just got a new.
No, it's dragons.
It's dragons.
And my dragons are all dogs that I've had. Every dragon in my book series are dragons dogs I've had or my friends have had, except for Zabo. Zabo was my former neurologist who passed away, Dr. Albert Zabo, and he asked to be a dragon in my books. So he is Zabo, the acid-breathing dragon of the Court of Dark. I always have to say his full name because he changed it on all his internal memos at the practice. So it would say Dr. Zabo, the acid-breathing dragon of the Court of Dark. He would get in trouble. And they'd be like, "Is the author there? Is that why you're changing this?" And so yes, he actually switched out his doctor picture for his dragon portrait. And that is what is up there, and the floor is being named after him. But his dragon portrait is there. So yes. Every dragon in the series is a friend's dog that has passed, or one of mine.
And they're acid breathing. Okay? It's not even fire, alright? We bumped it up a level. We got acid breathing dragons.
Fire, ice, and acid. I have 3 types. I got fire breather, acid breather, and ice breathers, and I have the reasons in my books why they do it. It's Not some magical crap, because I hate that. I hate when it's just like, oh, they breathe fire, they breathe. I got the physiological reasons on why they do it. I work with an engineer, a physicist, and a vet. And that's how we came up with the real reasons why dragons breathe it and how they can survive.
Shit. All right. Well.
Yeah, we're gonna have a whole other podcast on how we do fantasy creatures. That's gonna be a whole other
time, ladies and gentlemen. So,
whole other time.
Anybody out there, if you want to check out more of Lost in the Groove, you can find us everywhere at Lost in the Groove Pod. And to make it a little bit easier for links for Danielle, check out Substack. I'll put in the video game. Wanna got the website or whatever? I can put it.
I'll give you all the information.
Awesome. All right, motherfuckers. Well, this has been fun. Catch you on the next one. All right. Peace out.